The ritual of slichot, of last Saturday night and again on Yom Kippur, is first mentioned in a compilation of medieval midrash called Tana de Veit Eliyahu Zuta. In this midrash, God is having a conversation with King David. And David knows that one day the temple will be destroyed, and he's worried about how the Jewish people will seek atonement when that time comes. God tells David that when troubles come upon Israel, the entire people should stand before God as a single unit, ba'agodat achat, and make a confession. Over these 10 days, the Jewish people across the earth are gathered ba'agodat achat, to stand en masse before God and pray the same words in the first person plural, each identifying ourselves with the collective, all making confession, all seeking forgiveness, asking ourselves, how did we get here? What was our role? What could we have done differently? Here are some suggestions. For years, we looked away from the rockets hitting Sderot, from Hamas tunneling underground. We knew, but each time the flare-ups ended, we looked away. For years, most of us looked away from the growing threat of Iran and its armies on all sides. When we looked that way at all, we focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and not the larger war. For years, we looked away from the conditions of Gaza after Israel withdrew in 2005. 2 million people trapped, the unemployment, the hunger, the growing rage. We knew, but we looked away. For decades, we looked away from the West Bank. As settlements expanded, as land theft, abuse of power, and a dual, unequal system of justice became normalized, as settler extremists from a banned political party took over the state of Israel, and as the Israeli public moved so far to the right that politicians could not speak of a Palestinian state. For decades, we allowed all of our major organizations, synagogues, and schools to teach an incomplete story of Israel and to silence criticism of Israel. We allowed them to define loyalty as blind allegiance, and when our youth asked questions or tried to raise the alarm, we called them self-hating Jews, giving them no place of acceptance in the Jewish world and creating a vacuum that was filled by the illiberal left. For years, we allowed right-wing and Orthodox interests to claim the mantle of Jewish authority, to pull our national organizations to the right, to speak for us, to present a distorted picture of American Jewry, and to support and fund reactionary, theocratic, and Jewish supremacist forces in Israel. For years, we looked away from anti-Semitism on the left. When people we thought of as allies were anti-Semitic or excluded Jews, we excused it. We avoided confronting it. We brushed it off. We looked away. And when our own people called it out, we said they were overreacting. And this year, the most obvious confession is to the mass killing and collective punishment of innocents and the dehumanization that enabled it. You may have other different confessions you think we ought to make as a people. What we do on these 10 days is we confess in the collective, and then we imagine who we want to be, how we want to be different. First of all, we have to decide to be Jewish, to live a Jewish life however we define it, to see ourselves as part of the Jewish community. This year, I spoke to congregants who, in anguish, were considering leaving the Jewish community and not raising their children as Jews because they are so ashamed of how our people have behaved this year. And I talked to congregants who removed all outward Jewish symbols from their bodies and their homes out of either shame or fear of anti-Semitism, fear of being judged, fear of being harmed. That shame, that fear, they're real. And there are Jews who are choosing to put their heads down and blend in. I think all of us can relate to that a little bit.